On behalf of VMUG, I'd like to welcome you to today's webcast, Private Cloud as a Service for On-Prem Infrastructure, presented by William Bell of phoenixNAP. Thank you for participating in today's webcast and for your continued support in the global VMUG program. Before we begin, I have a few quick housekeeping items to go over. First, today's webcast will be recorded and available for on-demand. You'll receive a follow-up email with the on-demand link from today's webcast, so be looking out for that. Second, a Q&A session will follow today's presentation. All questions will need to be entered in the question window near the bottom of your GoToWebinar screen. Third, there will be a short online evaluation that pops up as you exit the webcast. Please make sure to take a minute and let us know what you thought of today's session and what you might like to see going forward. One attendee from today's webcast will win a $100 Amazon gift card. phoenixNAP will email the winner directly following the webcast today, so good luck. All right, let's get started. I would like to introduce you to today's presenter, William Bell, Executive Vice President of Products at phoenixNAP. William, I would like to turn things over to you.
Thank you so much. Really excited to be here today, guys. This is one of my favorite audiences to speak to because it's people in the thick of it with my background and in engineering. And I like to talk through both the technical decision-making pathways and the business justification for why people choose various routes. And I think that that's really the crux of today's conversation. What we look at, the title of this is Private Cloud as a Service versus On-Prem Infrastructure. And it's a little bit simplistic of a conversation in terms of it's not really versus those two, but also against public cloud and other various amalgamations of what cloud and on-prem means and hybrid and et cetera. So I'll try to simplify it down and talk through as many components as I can with the time that we have. And please, ask any questions that you have. I'd love to answer questions and really kind of give you insights. It's boring for me to talk for 35, 40 minutes. And, I'd like to get that interaction from the group. So don't hesitate, technical or otherwise, just fire away. So who the heck are we? So it's funny, when we started our company 10 years ago, it was always this really big question, who is phoenixNAP? What are they? And we still answer that question today, but I'm happy that we spend less time answering that question than we used to. And a lot of that's thanks to our partners and our community for really kind of recognizing our efforts and kind of what we've been building. This recent, two recent ones, 2019 CRN Coolest Cloud Companies Award and Veeam's Innovation Award for 2019 as well. So, we've got a lot of stuff going on, and these are just kind of a couple sample sets of areas that we cover. And, it says award-winning infrastructure as a service provider here, and we are an IaaS company, and it's weird to hear that from people these days because a lot of people have kind of resigned themselves to the fact that there's hyperscalers or IaaS and everything else is data center. And there's nothing in the middle. And, I guess it couldn't be further from the truth. And there's so many varied reasons as to why that's the case. I'll try to talk through some of them. But, a lot of it boils down to solving problems, right? How do you solve the problem that your business faces, technically or business or whatever that problem is? How do you solve for that problem? And the answer isn't always available through the Amazons and Googles and Microsofts of the world. It can be, and a lot of times it is, or at least for part of corporate workloads, it definitely is. But what we found as we've kind of felt our way through this market over the last 10 years is that the fringes aren't as fringy as people believe them to be, right? So, everyone, at least Amazon, for example, looks at this and says, okay, you're either in Amazon, maybe you're in one of my competitors, or it doesn't exist. And, I think that what we're finding is that even if they didn't believe that holistically and they thought it was 5% of the market would stay on-prem or in a data center or through another provider that's not a hyperscaler, the reality of it from our perspective looks like probably north of 20%, maybe 30% of workloads long term will remain either on-prem or in a boutique cloud service that meets some business need that the customer has. And so, I've been doing this for a really long time. We started the business in 2009, and we've been focusing every single day since we launched on providing broad spectrum infrastructure as a service, from data center to enterprise private cloud as a service. That's what we do worldwide. And I've kind of shown that here in this build out slide. For the last 5 years, we have been systematically covering the globe with deployments of infrastructure. And we've created networks, private networks between these data centers so that our customers can get a true one network worldwide, one infrastructure provider worldwide, all of which can be connected over high-speed, low-latency links to public cloud offerings. And I think that's very important, right? Because you can make a case that the traditional on-prem environment isn't a single data center anymore and isn't in a closet in an office anymore long-term, right? I think that ship probably sailed, and what we're finding is that it's all landing in multi-tenant data centers. But inside those multi-tenant data centers, of the world, the footprints are kind of mixed. If everyone had taken their on-prem environment and just moved into a data center, we'd have 3 times as many data centers as we have today in terms of multi-tenant. But instead, a lot of those workloads are moving to public cloud, and that's a very understandable modality. The question is, what do you do when public cloud doesn't work, right? What do you do when you're forced to go to the cloud, air quotes, by CIO, CEO, board, etc., but it doesn't work for your application? And I think that's one of the things that I'm going to try to knife through today, and what those options look like. I really talk a lot about the benefits of both being on-prem, and when I say on-prem, from here forward, I mean in a multi-tenant data center, likely, and buying and integrating it yourself, buying hardware and private cloud stacks from the traditional vendors, integrating yourself and owning that infrastructure, versus private cloud as a service, whether that is something like VMC on AWS, or one of our cloud offerings, or my competitors. I'm going to try to compare and contrast some of those components. And I think it's important to understand, for this crowd specifically, where VMC on AWS makes sense, and where VMware Cloud Verified clouds make sense, right? And I think that's, for the VMUG group, that's going to be an interesting conversation for everyone to have, because I think there's a big difference in each one of those offerings and what it means to your organization. So talked a little bit about this. One of the things that I will mention, that's actually a photo of our meet me room in our flagship facility. Great, cool place. If you ever get a chance to come to Phoenix, feel free to reach out to us. You can come take a tour. That wall continues to get bigger and bigger, full of names. So pretty much every carrier that matters in the U.S. and even internationally is in that facility today, and it's a great part of our portfolio. But it's although the genesis of the name and the genesis of the company, we left being a data center company behind a long time ago, and we operate that as kind of a unique standalone offering. It's part of our portfolio. Co-location is a big part of what we do, but as a data center operator, it really isn't our company. But the thing that you'll notice if you ever get a chance to go there is security is a big deal. And security is a big deal to our organization, because we all started in the payment space. So the executive team at phoenixNAP all started in the payment space, and obviously InfoSec was a big part of our life, right? When you're managing payments and subscription payments for customers, keeping that data safe is of the utmost importance to the customer base and to the success of our previous businesses. So we kind of approach the data center space and the infrastructure as a service space with the security hat on. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go. But that is one of the places that we find differentiation in what we offer versus the rest of the market. That's kind of just the eyeball slide of what we do. I won't spend too much time there. We're not going to have a lot of time to get into security services in depth, although I'll talk about it. Backup disaster recovery is a huge part of our portfolio. We're the second largest vCloud service provider in North America today. So, if you guys use and leverage Veeam, it's a big part, and we should definitely have a conversation. And then we kind of wrap it in light managed services. I hesitate to say managed services because we're an infrastructure as a service company, right? We do managed services to deliver infrastructure, and we manage that infrastructure at scale. We're not a boutique MSP. It's not really our model. It's not, you look at the way we interact with you as a customer, the way we interact with you in terms of the solutions we provide, it's not really our shtick. But we have a great portfolio of family of companies that can help with applications and performance management and things like that. So, definitely, want to kind of talk through that. So, going to move on to that next slide, talk a little bit about the industry, talk a little bit about the trends that we see. Our friends at Spiceworks kind of put together some of this data, and it's a little bit interesting to kind of pick through this, and we see a lot of this kind of resonating in our offerings, and both from a private cloud as a service perspective and from a backup disaster recovery perspective. And when you start lumping a lot of that together, right, specifically cloud storage, IaaS, security solutions, you start to create bigger pieces of the pie. And when we look at private cloud as a service, we think that it kind of envelops a lot of that pie, along with online backup disaster recovery, and then productivity, right? And I would lump email and things like that into productivity. And then we see platform as a service really just kind of coming into fruition. It's not for everyone. And, there are positives and benefits that I can get into, but not on this call, and we could say that for another day. We tried to segment this down. Hopefully most of you guys are in this 500 to 999 employee segment, but I think it's some good data nonetheless. And, when we look at why private cloud as a service, why not public cloud, why not do it myself on-prem, we look at some of these from a market analysis perspective, and we think that what we've built from a private cloud as a service perspective, of which we have a few varieties, meet a lot of those needs that people are looking for, right? And I mentioned security at the forefront, and I'll try to talk through a little bit about that as we kind of get into various products and services that are available. But, support is hard, and I want to kind of dive into that because this really gets into why build versus buy, right? And when people are saying they're looking for good support, there's two angles to that we typically see. Obviously, you can't fix a lot of things when you're consuming as a service, so you need good support to help you fix the problems that your vendor causes, or that you may think your vendor caused, right? But also, it means access to technical talent that is difficult for you to retain, right? When you're building, you're running your own IT shop, you're director of a mid-sized company, everyone is stretched thin. We know it. We see it every single day with our customer base of 3,700 worldwide. We see IT shops stretched to the maximum. And so when we look at support and what we offer to our customers, we're trying to go that extra mile to make sure that not only you're happy with the service that you're consuming, but also that your business needs are being met and challenges that you encounter are being, kind of put to bed as quickly as possible. And so, I really think that there's a lot that's wrapped into that, and from a support perspective, that needs to be kind of talked through when you're looking at whether you do it yourself or whether you consume it as a service. And I really look at these last three as, you know, I would say they're just necessary. You know, I find that businesses often underestimate the lift and shift necessary to go to public cloud in its totality. Specifically the center one, this integration with existing tools. Although sometimes they provide you new tools that may ultimately benefit you in the long run, they don't always help you in the midterm, in the short term specifically, and they can be a hindrance to productivity as you have to retool everything from a monitoring perspective, from an orchestration perspective, from whatever that is perspective. And also, you know, I think the one thing that isn't mentioned here very much that should be is it's not just about a competitive price, but also about what you're getting for that price, right? I think one of the things that, if I can hammer home one point to you today, is that not all infrastructure is created equal. And that doesn't mean that every service provider or people like ourselves have access to some special piece of infrastructure that's more powerful than anyone's ever seen. What I mean by that is that there are specific types of infrastructure solutions that make applications work better depending on the performance needs, availability needs, and size and scale needs of that application. And I'll actually take you through a quick, it's not in my presentation, but I'll take you through a kind of a quick proof point of that, the two quick kind of case studies, if you will. So we have a customer that is, they build ephemeral browsers as a service. So you can go and get a secure desktop connected to your enterprise. And by desktop, I really mean kind of more like browser in the cloud, right? Wild and crazy in the government space, they love it, you know, because no data can actually get out or into the environment. And it was an interesting challenge they faced. So they came to us from Amazon, and on Amazon they were using NVIDIA GPU instances to accelerate the graphics, XRDP, and some of these technologies that they use under the hood. And they said, we're interested in this new technology that Intel just created. It's called QuickSync for those that want to write notes down. We're interested in this new technology that created that we think can really accelerate the graphics delivery for Firefox, which is what their platform is built on. And we want to see if you guys can stand up something for us to do that. And for us, that was an easy no-brainer. You know, that's a place where we say, okay, well, there's a specific workload here that may, you know, be accelerated by this platform change or the specific feature. And what we found is that they were able to reduce their cost of ownership by 6x just because of this little system on a chip GPU that's only job is really to accelerate video delivery. And you can't get that server, that chip in any hyperscaler, nor would you ever, because the hyperscaler is never going to sell, you know, 500,000 of them. And that's the only thing that matters to their business, right? And so that's kind of a non-VMware example. And then on the VMware side of things, we recently had a press release with our friends at Panzura. A lot of you guys may know them as the FreeNAS company, but they've been working on a new Elasticsearch as a service product called Vision AI. And we worked with VMware and Intel to deliver the first workload advancement for Elasticsearch on Intel persistent memory leveraging vSphere, right? And we had that available to the market day one on April 2nd when those chipsets were launched. And that's kind of a testament to the collaboration that we got. And again, from Amazon, Panzura got a 3 times performance improvement for a 20% cost reduction, leveraging persistent memory in a cloud service based on VMware. So it's that workload-specific infrastructure that service providers have access to that can really change the paradigm for a business that is looking at buy versus build, because a lot of times that boutique infrastructure is only needed in a little amount but it costs a lot to get it if you have to buy it and integrate it yourself. And I think that's a place that we really start to show value from a private cloud as a service perspective, and why you should look at various providers that can offer you these types of solutions versus going out and buying it and building it. You know, one of the things that we've seen is, you know, VMware continues to just own the private cloud space, and a lot of it comes from them owning the virtualization space in general. But when we talk about complete orchestration, new apps, new workloads on-prem, VMware's doing a great job there too. And one of the reasons that I'm so excited about being one of their best partners is we have a compelling hybrid story for on-prem deployments. When you have invested in people and time and effort to making your on-prem deployment work and it's working for your business, why throw it in the trash, right? You can go to cloud.vmware.com right now, and you can watch a case study where we helped Make-A-Wish Foundation truly transform their business. They were running in a private cloud in one of our data centers. They ended up on a rerun of 60 Minutes covering one of their wish children. And their traffic to their website exploded, donations exploded in terms of volume. And, you know, the ability for them to within 4 hours have a whole new set of infrastructure spun up, ready to go and connected to their on-prem, that, you know, changed everything for them. It changed their capability and the ways that they think about buying versus building on-prem and extending to the cloud and making that a part of their capabilities. So, you know, I guess my selfish point for this is hosted cloud services, private cloud as a service. Viable option to the go to the cloud message versus just, okay, fine, I'm picking it up, I'm going to Microsoft and it's done, and I'll take the pain and I'll transform all my apps as I can get to them, and you know, we'll have the lack of efficiency on the way there, and we'll hope that it makes the business happy, right? It's just, it's not a great value proposition always. That said, you know, benefits to public cloud. If you have truly burstable workloads, things that go up and down violently, you are crazy to build it yourself. You're crazy to work with me to have a private cloud as a service, although we have other options for on-demand infrastructure. But you know, consuming a private cloud as a service doesn't make sense either, right? You need workload scale flexibility, and that doesn't come through commitment and building something specific for you, right? It comes through consuming whatever infrastructure you can for the time that you need it, right? But what we find is that when people are truly honest with themselves, that doesn't happen as often as people believe it will. And then on the developer focused side, the DevOps side of the equation, right? There are a ton of enhancements in a PaaS platform that you can get to application delivery and application engineering. But they typically come with a cost that's hidden, that just you don't see until you're done and your application's in production and you're leveraging every last little service that one of the major hyperscalers provides, and you can never get out, ever. And then the cost equation starts to really become resident in your mind. And yeah, so the other thing we see is security becomes continual concern, right? Generally, people are still concerned about whether their data should sit in a public cloud on the same server as other people, right? And we saw that with all of the Intel chipset vulnerabilities, the AMD chipset vulnerabilities, you know, all of these components without specific mitigations can be very problematic, right? And you know, for us, offering that choice to be in a multi-tenant private cloud or a single tenant private cloud is core to our business, our customers' business decision making, right? If you feel like you need that, we have a solution for that from a single tenant private cloud perspective. We talked through a lot of that. I'm gonna try to kind of go through what this means to customers from a private cloud as a service, right? So ostensibly, we look at it in two kind of major flavors. First flavor is a truly single tenant offering that looks and feels just like the thing that you're used to buying and integrating yourself, except you don't have to buy it using capital, and you don't have to manage the mundane bits of infrastructure, hardware replacement, network setup, bandwidth delivery. You know, you don't have to manage any of those components, and you can focus on your apps. vSphere in the cloud, focused on apps. Very similar to VMC on AWS, except for when it comes to what else you can do with that environment, right? And I think that that's an interesting kind of compare and contrast. When I talk to my friends on the VMC team, they're very honest about what they offer as a company. It is pure public cloud infrastructure as a service. In the absolute truest form, that's what they offer. This is not a very helperton environment. It is self-service, on demand. You know, they'll help you with kind of the pre-sale side of the equation. They'll support you if something's broken, but this isn't a wrap your arms around you and help you out type of offering. And you know, frankly, they've made a lot of decisions to accommodate for scale that have sacrificed general usability for a lot of organizations. And so they've really looked to their partner community, their service provider community, and through the building of a concept that VMware calls VMware Cloud Verified, they've chosen a few partners to create cloud services with that are not running VMC specifically, but are 100% compatible with VMC workloads, right? Leveraging the same technologies, same revisioning, and really make those workloads truly portable between VMC and what would be considered in this case on-prem private cloud as a service. And really getting through all the same technologies that that a customer enjoys on-prem delivered to you as a service. And so when we look at the business components of a private cloud, and specifically as you get into multi-tenant logical private clouds, what does affect a VPC in a VMware environment? You know, you start to see a lot of benefits in terms of technical adoption that were not there for you as an organization because of business restrictions, right? You need your application's not going fast enough, and you need that next tier of hardware. You know, we're adding to that environment yearly to add new bits of hardware, new software technologies. You know, kind of as our partners at VMware and Intel make those things available, we're adding to that environment, upgrading that environment, and providing it to you as a service. Niche components, you know, access to, in this case, Optane-based vSAN environments, access to persistent memory as a service, right? Access to the latest and greatest tools like NSX Enterprise, and the brand new Intel Xeon Scalable processors, right? You know, really having the ability to point and click your way to the latest and greatest infrastructure components that exist, right? And it is something that is, I'm envious from a perspective of when I was building virtualization stacks for our business and previous businesses. You know, this wasn't an option for me in any capacity. I'm not talking about just phoenixNAP. I'm talking about, you know, consuming this as a service. And I sat in eye-bleeding budget meetings asking for millions of dollars to upgrade an environment that no one understood why it needed to be upgraded, right? And I think that that's one of the more compelling reasons to at least investigate this class of service, because if you have applications that you've chosen that we're just not going to take them to hyperscale for whatever reason, there are legitimate options out there in the VMware ecosystem, leveraging the technologies that you're used to and keeping you in the game effectively, keeping those skill sets that you've built relevant. Because at the end of the day, it accomplishes the mission of the business. It truly accomplishes the mission of the cloud adoption components of the business. And through the delivery of other services that we didn't talk about today, we have ways to really start working with those application engineering teams and making them comfortable with those environments as well, so that everybody kind of gets along and plays along. And this is my sales slide. It's the only one that really, truly sales slide. This is our virtual private data center product. It is based on vCloud Director. You can get an allocation pool and make VMs instantly. Make NSX, microsegmentation networks, edge firewalls, provision vSAN data stores, everything on demand, ready to go. And it really helps reduce your scale. We've got a ton of other project services that we won't have time to get into, because I really want to see if you guys have some questions. But this is the kind of native VMware Cloud IaaS product that we offer today. It's available in 5 regions, I think, today worldwide, and can really be helpful. The other thing, I guess, from a regionality perspective, I'll touch on is that a lot of times where these types of services can make sense is reaching new locations, right? If you've got an internal VMware environment built private cloud on-prem, and you're just trying to get some systems in Amsterdam to service your European headquarters, domain controllers, and just who knows, whatever, other exchange servers, etc. This is a good option to kind of get that regional footprint moving. And I kind of toss out this case study here to end it. The guys at HomeSmart International have been awesome for us. They are the largest digital brokerage in the world. So instead of using Remax or something like that, it provides agents the ability to go and sell homes through their platform. And they literally had everything in a rack. They wanted out of the hardware business. It is the tried and true story of cloud adoption, and they were able to just point and click and build their way to a successful infrastructure deployment. So that is all I had today. I hope it was enlightening to some extent, and hopefully some of the color commentary was enlightening. I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has. And VMUG team, I'll let you go from there.
All right, great. Thanks, Will. I don't see any questions yet, but we'll give it a minute or so and see what comes in.
Everybody wants that $100 gift card. I'll flip to my last slide. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm at William L. Bell at Twitter, and my email's there. You guys can reach out to me. I'm happy to answer technical, business, whatever you guys have, you can throw at me. We'll go from there. I think, to kind of cap it all off, since no one has any questions, this cloud first future is here, right? And it doesn't mean one cloud. It truly does mean multi-cloud, and multi-cloud doesn't mean multi-hyperscaler specifically. It means from at least from our perspective, the way we define it is it means workload specific infrastructure choice. Choose the right infrastructure platform for your application and your business, and manage it centrally, and get the insights and the acceleration and the availability and security that you need on an app dependent basis. And so I'll leave you with that. Think about that term, workload specific infrastructure. and what it could mean to some of your applications. All right, somebody tossed in a question. What criteria is best to decide whether to stay on-prem or Azure? All right. Interesting. Okay, well, first thing I would say is I'm not even talking about just our services. I would love to work with you guys, but at the end of the day, if you contact my competitors, talk to whoever, but you know, I would say that don't limit yourself just to the talk track of anyone. This conversation, Amazon solution engineers in your office, Azure, ELA team in there saying, oh, it's easy, we'll just convert you and go. One of the things I would say about Azure specifically, if there's interest there, their platform as a service tools are extremely robust. They're very cost effective compared to Amazon in our experience. And they can be very big benefit to your software development teams. What I will also say is that there are significant licensing advantages currently, and I'll stress currently, to adopting Microsoft Azure. So they're being very aggressive on the Windows Server license conversion path to Azure. I caution everyone that there's another shoe to drop there, right? I work with the biggest manufacturers in the world. I know what things cost. I understand exactly what the margin should look like, and I can tell you that even if you add another 2, 3, 4% for being Microsoft or being Amazon, in terms of costing, what they're pricing right now for Azure infrastructure as a service is unsustainable, because they're just trying to get the workloads as quickly as possible and get you consuming services from Microsoft, software services from Microsoft, as quickly as possible. They do not believe that their future is in infrastructure as a service. They believe that their future is in software as a service. And I think that's important to kind of understand. Do you want to take it, the VMWare team? Do you want to ask some of these questions and see if we can hear another voice?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Eric asked if the presentation will be recorded and available later, and that yes, it will, and it will be sent to you by tomorrow. It'll also be on the VMWare On Demand page. There's another question here for you, Will. It says, has your team done any price comparisons between the public cloud costs? That is to say, workloads dictate and the customer must pay for the higher end equipment either way. Thoughts?
Yeah, okay, so here's kind of a very general way to break it down. The hyperscalers, public cloud specifically, when I say public cloud, I keep it to, Intel has a great term they call Super 7, right? And that's doesn't exactly mean IaaS, but it means, Baidu, Tencent, Alibaba, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and I'm forgetting one more, but that is kind of the term that I use for public cloud. So when I look at those, and I assume that's where you're asking, Gregory, the public cloud costs for previous generation infrastructure, i.e. 3 generations old, M1, M2, M3 instances, on 3-year reserve commitments, are absolutely the most cost-effective thing that you can buy generally from me or from anyone else. We have other, if you're just looking at IaaS and not at virtualization specifically, or point and click VMs and you're willing to do yourself, we've got all kinds of other things that we do to kind of show customers different value propositions. Honestly, again, I'm not even advocating my own service, but anything in the bare metal space, a lot of people don't really look at bare metal cloud offerings seriously enough, because if you need just raw horsepower and infrastructure, there is nothing more cost effective today than getting a bare metal server as a service. And if you don't trust me, just go to my website, do a couple quick calculations on one of the beefy servers, and then try to build the same thing in Amazon. And you'll see kind of the difference pretty quickly. But keeping it in the private cloud as a service versus public cloud comparison side, we find that our virtual private data center product usually prices around about 1.2 to 1.25% what a one previous generation, so M4 in Amazon's world, or D4, I guess, or whatever it is in Azure's world. That is about where our costs lie from a pure IaaS perspective. Now, this is where the game starts to change significantly, and these guys know it and they love it and they eat it up all the time. There are components of hyperscalers that are very expensive, and people just don't understand how that can be, right? So I'll give you a quick math one, right? So let's say you're kind of just a small, medium enterprise, and you use about, I don't know, 500 megabits per second of bandwidth outbound. You've got VPNs going to a bunch of different, campuses and things like that. You could be sitting on a few $1,000s a month bandwidth bill at the end of the month just for bandwidth. And I can tell you, it don't cost that much. It really doesn't. And it's just one of those places where the average Amazon consumer, just doesn't use a lot of bandwidth. So having a kind of an artificially high consumption price, it doesn't bother them. And then for the few that do, it's easy to talk off and say, well, you use a lot more than the average. So you got to pay for that. But you don't even have to talk to anyone. Just go ask your CenturyLink rep what a price of bandwidth looks like these days, right? Or your Cox rep or whatever, Spectrum. Ask them how much a megabit of bandwidth costs, and you can find out pretty quickly where those places are. The other one would be, as you start to get into, again, some of this niche infrastructure, GPUs are a great area to talk about in public cloud. Abhorrently expensive, absolutely, unequivocally, just, it doesn't even make sense when you understand what they cost, right? When you really look at it and you understand what they cost. And I'm not even talking about cost of CapEx versus, renting it as a service. I'm talking about just hyperscaler versus a few varied other people that will offer you that same platform as a service. So you want an NVIDIA Tesla V100, Amazon will charge you about $4,000 a month for full-time access to a Tesla V100 with 8 of them, right? So, when you look at our bare metal cloud offering as an example, that same card might cost you $1,400 a month. And so you start to find these little places that they just don't feel compelled to be competitive, and that's okay. That's their business model. They're really shooting towards the middle. And I think that as you look at this idea of public cloud versus private cloud, it costs a lot of money to keep infrastructure around for people to possibly never use. So anytime you are on demand for something and no commitment, right, you're going to pay more. That's just the end of it. Right? What you have to start comparing is, okay, what does a 3-year reserve cost look like in Amazon versus a 3-year reserve cost look like in a private cloud? What kind of flexibility and integrations do I have in that public cloud that can matter to my business? Security, application delivery, backup, disaster recovery capabilities. What does that look like, and how am I protecting my critical assets? I think that that's another place that people can find a lot of value in their search. Everyone calls it a journey to the public cloud, but most people start with a search of how to get there and how to best accomplish the mission that they've been put in front of them. And yeah, I'd happy to take any more of those questions that anyone has. Let's see. Yeah, go for it.
There's another one.
You want to read it off?
Yeah, it says, my boss views DevOps as being easier in the AWS cloud over a private cloud. What are your views on this?
Well, I would say that your boss needs to go look at all of the major platforms out there. So here's a couple of components. Infrastructure automation is the only place that varies when you look at private cloud versus public cloud. How do you create and destroy infrastructure? And if you go to the very popular application called Terraform by HashiCorp, they've done a pretty good job of kind of somewhat cornering that market, although there are competitors. There are provisioners for vSphere, there are provisioners for vCloud Director, there are provisioners for AWS and Alibaba, Rackspace, IBM. We're working on a provisioner for our cloud services, bare metal cloud services. Infrastructure provisioning is really the key differentiator there, and platforms like that have made it democratize that to some extent. And then once you get into the CI/CD and the continuous integration, continuous delivery components, all that stuff's happening at the OS level anyway. It's happening at the systems level. And at that point, whether it's a VM running on vSphere, a bare metal server, although you can talk about some other availability components of that, or a public cloud offering based on KVM, it doesn't much matter how that works. Now, PaaS. It's a beautiful, euphoric bed of landmines, right? Platform as a service is likely what he's talking about. And what he means is he doesn't have to have database experts because he can use RDS to run his database. Well, the problem you have is that if at any point in time you wanted to not use RDS, it's tough. The migration path is just very difficult. And I would recommend that folks really concerned about DevOps and cloud native services or cloud native delivery of applications should focus in on the true meaning of what cloud native is, right? This idea that it is built for portability, built as a microservice, leveraging software packages that effectively give you the same ease of use without being delivered as a service to you. And that is a much better landing point for a lot of folks. I find that people are ultimately much happier when they have easy to manage, easy to use, supported technologies. So getting that support's important as well. Supported technologies that give them freedom at the same time. That's a much better outcome for a business than, all right, well, I'm all in on this function as a service in Amazon. You look at components like Fargate and Lambda, serverless and function as a service components in any public cloud offering. And beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. I use them for various things myself, right? At times, I've got one of those cool Amazon machine learning, tabletop machine learning servers on my desk. Has a camera on it for doing AI kind of training and inference. And it's all based on function as a service. The whole concept around it is, build it. But that application is never going anywhere. It is impossible. It just physically will not work anywhere else but Amazon. And that's exactly what they want. So I feel like I'm doing a lot of Amazon bashing. They're a really great partner of ours, and they're a customer of mine in Phoenix. So, I'm not saying that you shouldn't use public cloud. You absolutely should. GPUs are another good example. If you need to train an AI workload for 15 minutes a day, and you want to use the best technology to do that, build that in Amazon. Do it, because I can't give it to you cheaper than that. They're keeping farms of them around ready for you to consume for 10 minutes, for an hour, right? And I am not, right? But when you've got that production AI machine learning workload and you're getting ready to go run a production business and you're looking at the total cost of operation of keeping that thing online 24/7, 365, let's have a conversation, because there is a give and a take to that every single day. Cool. All right. I think we made it.
All right, great. So do you have any closing comments or anything else you'd like to add, Bill?
Yeah, I'd say if you have no clue what you think that we could do together or what you think your future looks like, call us, right? We're just normal people. We actually pick up the phone. We'll talk to you. I like to see our guys working on cool new projects. Our specialty is this conversation of workload specific infrastructure. The majority of the things that we're doing today could be somewhat boiled down into kind of niche community cloud creation, i.e. clouds built for specific things. And that's where we're putting our efforts today. And they can really revolutionize and transform some businesses. If you have high memory applications like SAP HANA, or what else? SAP, SAS applications, big CRMs, all kinds of things, in-memory databases. Let's have a conversation there. We've got new technology that's not available anywhere else that can really make a difference, all based on vSphere and VMware.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Will, for taking the time to speak to us today. One attendee from today's webcast will win a $100 Amazon gift card, and phoenixNAP will email the winner directly, so be on the lookout for that. As a reminder, you will receive a follow-up email with the on-demand link from today's webcast, and to find out more about the VMUG Webcast program, you can visit vmug.com/learn. And please make sure to complete the short online evaluation that will pop up as you exit the webcast, and let us know what you thought of today's session. And from all of us here at VMUG, thank you and have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, guys.